Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Tonight, as the air grows colder and the shadows lengthen, I have some stories for you. 5 unsettling tales, each just a glimpse into a darkness that brushes against our world, especially on a night like Halloween. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, and listen closely. Let's begin. Our first story is called The Trick-or-Treater Who Knew My Name. It was last Halloween, a perfectly ordinary night filled with the usual parade of ghosts and goblins. I was handing out candy, enjoying the festive spirit, when a little girl approached my door. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, but it was her mask that made me freeze. It wasn't a monster or a superhero. It looked exactly like my face. An uncanny, miniature replica. I forced a nervous laugh and asked her who she was supposed to be. She stepped closer, her voice a chilling whisper that barely carried over the autumn wind. "You'll see tomorrow," she said, before taking a piece of candy and disappearing back into the night. I tried to shrug it off, telling myself it was just a clever, creepy costume. But the next morning, as I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, my heart stopped. My reflection blinked, but I didn't. It just stared back at me, a slow, knowing smile spreading across its face. And I had the terrifying realization that I was no longer the one in control. I was just the reflection, and she was out there living my life. Next, we have a story that will make any parent's blood run cold. This one is titled The Voice on the Baby Monitor. The doorbell was ringing nonstop. I was in the living room, a huge bowl of candy in my lap, trying to keep up with the endless stream of trick-or-treaters. My husband was upstairs, putting our infant son to bed. Suddenly, the baby monitor on the coffee table crackled to life. It wasn't the sound of my son crying. It was a voice, a low, guttural whisper that said, "He's here." My breath caught in my throat. Before I could even process it, my phone rang. It was my husband, calling from his cell. His voice was frantic, breathless. "Did you hear that? On the monitor?" It just said, "He's here." A wave of pure dread washed over me. "I'm coming up," I yelled, dropping the phone and bolting for the stairs. I took them 2 at a time, my heart pounding against my ribs. But when I burst into the nursery, it was empty. The window was wide open, the cool night air billowing the curtains. My husband wasn't there, my baby was gone. The only thing left was the monitor on the nightstand, humming with static. And as I stood there, frozen in horror, the same whisper echoed from the small speaker one last time. "They're with me now." Let's move on to our third tale, a story about a seemingly innocent Halloween decoration. This is The Pumpkin That Moved. I've always loved carving pumpkins. It's my favorite part of Halloween. This year, I spent a whole afternoon carving a big, cheerful, smiling pumpkin to put on my front porch. It was perfect. But the next morning, when I went to get the paper, the smile had changed. It was more of a smirk, a subtle, almost imperceptible shift. I figured I was just imagining things. Maybe the pumpkin was settling. But the next day, the smirk was gone, replaced by a frown. Every single morning, its face was different. An angry scowl, a sad grimace, a look of surprise. It was unnerving. On Halloween night, I glanced out the window and saw it had changed again. This time it was smiling that same wide, cheerful smile from the first day. But there was something nestled inside its hollow grin, something metallic catching the porch light. I slowly opened the door and peered inside. My stomach dropped. It was my cat's collar. He'd been missing for a week. As I stared, the carved mouth seemed to stretch even wider, a permanent, triumphant grin. I grabbed a shovel from the garage and smashed that pumpkin into 100 pieces. But it did no good. Sometimes when the house is quiet, I can still hear a faint, dry scraping from the porch, and the echo of that terrible, grinning face. Our fourth story comes from a place we all feel safe, our own home security cameras. It's called My Halloween Security Footage. The morning after Halloween is always a bit of a letdown, and this one was worse. I woke up to find my house had been egged. Splattered yolk and shell dripped down the siding and windows. Furious, I decided to check my doorbell camera footage to see which neighborhood kids I needed to have a word with. I scrolled back through the night's recordings, past the little vampires and witches, then I found it. The timestamp was 3:13 a.m., but the person on the screen wasn't a teenager. It was me, standing right there on my own lawn, hurling eggs at my own house. But it wasn't quite me. This version looked older, tired. There were deeper lines on the face, more gray in the hair. The clothes were the same ones I'd worn that night, but they looked worn, faded. The strangest part, the part that makes my skin crawl every time I think about it, was the timestamp. It wasn't from last night. The date on the footage read October 31st of next year. I don't know what it means. I don't know if it's a warning or a promise. All I know is that Halloween is approaching, and I'm terrified to find out what could possibly happen in the next year to make me do that to my own home. For our final story tonight, a cautionary tale about secondhand finds. This one is called The Haunted Costume. I'm a huge fan of thrift stores. You can find the most amazing, unique things. For Halloween this year, I found the perfect costume. A vintage nurse's uniform from the 1950s. It was a bit worn, but it fit like a glove. The only odd thing was the smell. It had a faint metallic scent like old iron, mixed with something earthy and rotten like damp soil. I figured a good wash would take care of it. When I got it home, I noticed a small faded tag sewn into the collar. A name was embroidered on it in neat cursive letters. It was my name, exactly the same spelling. I laughed it off as a bizarre coincidence. On Halloween night, I put it on and went to a party. It was a huge hit, but as the night wore on, the costume started to feel tight, itchy. I tried to pull at the collar, and a sharp pain shot through my neck. When I got home and tried to take it off, I couldn't. It wouldn't budge. In the mirror, I saw with dawning horror that the edges of the fabric weren't just resting on my skin anymore. They were gone. The starchy white cotton had fused with my flesh, the seams sewn directly into my skin. It's a part of me now. And that smell of iron and rot. It's not coming from the costume anymore. It's coming from me. And with that, our time together comes to an end. 5 stories to linger in your mind as you turn out the lights. Remember, the thinnest veil separates our world from others, and on Halloween, that veil is at its most fragile. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed these tales, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more unsettling stories from the shadows. Stay safe, and until next time, sleep well. If you can.